And joining us now, we are so happy to have Sean Callahan, the CEO and President of Catholic Relief Services. Thank you so much for being with us.
My pleasure.
Just wrapping up 75 years, I know, what's it been like to think back and to have that kind of legacy? CRS is well known throughout the world, but talk about that maybe in hopes for the future to continue that.
Sure. You know, it's really been incredible, you know, to think back at the 75 years, and it was really poignant for me because I went down to Mexico and visited with one of our first beneficiaries of our program. A gentleman at age 4 was from Poland. His family got moved to a Russian gulag at one point. His father passed away. He went through Iran at the time and connected with Catholic Relief Services, and then he was placed in Santa Rosa in Mexico. In a colonia Santa Rosa there, and I actually went back with him. Now he's, you know, he was 4 years old at that time. He's coming up on 79 years old, and it was just seeing that person representing the history of the agency, what it meant with him, and the emotions that he went through. That how the church had basically saved his life and that of his family, and he ended up migrating from Mexico to the United States, entered the military, got married, had a family, and now is connected. And so he was down with us visiting some of the people who are now struggling to get out of Mexico at this time. So it's almost as if we've come full circle with the migration crisis after World War II, and then some of the issues related to migration now. So I think a great history that the bishops had the forethought of founding an agency to reach out to people overseas, and we've, you know, been the beneficiaries of that legacy ever since.
Yeah, and talking about, as you just mentioned, too, migration, but is that one of the more pressing topics for CRS, and maybe some of the other things that you're dealing with right now?
You know, migration continues to be a big issue, and what I think people sometimes fail to know is a lot of our role in migration is not only to assist people, you know, as they migrate, make sure they're safe and all, but it's actually to try to assist them in not to have to migrate. So I was most recently in Honduras and Guatemala 2 weeks ago, and we're doing farming programs. We're trying to help pull kids out of gangs. We're entrepreneurial programs so that they can start jobs and work. And it's really trying to help people to stay where they are, because most of them don't want to migrate. And if it's not a compelling violence issue that they have to escape, they want to stay there and they want to work. And so I was up with actually 2 of the Guatemalan bishops, Bishop Ramasini and Bishop Carrera. We're hiking up onto some of the little farms and meeting with a woman there, Rosa, who had her 2 granddaughters with her. Her son, unfortunately, had died. She now had the 4 grandkids and her son, and her husband was at a coffee plantation working off-site because they've had a drought in the area and their corn didn't come through, so they planted seeds. But we're helping them with some water projects there so that they can use the water resource and water management to grow crops better and build their resiliency. So again, so people don't have to migrate. Yeah. In other areas, we're working, you know, in response to war situations, in response to emergencies, and frankly, there's the migration crisis south of the border, but there's also migration in Africa and in Asia and in the Middle East. And so we're helping try to establish youth with jobs in all of these different areas. And so give them a dignified job so that they can contribute to their local communities and instead of having to go to the United States or Europe.
And there's all these, talk about the response of CRS, if you could, to just from you mentioning, you know, with migration issues, but just when wars come up, or how important it is to have a CRS able to respond so quickly and to be there, and in fact, in many places still already on the ground there.
Yeah. The fantastic thing about CRS is, like this past year, we worked in over 110 different countries, reaching 135 million people around the world. And we plug right in because, one, we have operations on the ground. We're invited in by the local church and use that local church network in all the countries in which we serve. So we can respond to emergency at the drop of a hat because we're there, we're with local people, speak the local language, and we're together with the local church. And as a matter of fact, one of our key areas of work is strengthening that local church and their ability to respond. And so we get these tremendously talented people from Africa, Asia, the Middle East, and they're helping us respond right on the ground to problems that are facing their own countries. So we're able to dig right in with that local language and local culture and do it. And so the gifts that we get from the United States help support that local church network as well. And it's unique into other organizations. Some have to go and find partners. We've actually got partners built in. So I think that was the foresight that the bishops had in establishing the organization, is developing that relationship with the local church on the ground.
Yeah, and talk about that too, if you could too, about the importance of donations, about people stepping up. And I know a lot of people know about Operation Rice Bowl as well, but what about other ways people can help out CRS?
Sure, they can help out. Operation Rice Bowl is a key one. Lenten gifts, and we have the CRS collection that comes in parishes. We appreciate that. Or they can just get onto our website at www.crs.org and give to many of the different causes, or to unrestricted. Before I went to Guatemala and Honduras, I was in West Africa, and they have a very tough food security problem there. It's up in the Sahel, so it's the desert area, and there's been violence in many of these areas. But I was in Niger, Burkina Faso, and Senegal, and as I traveled around the areas in Niger, I actually traveled with the 2 bishops of the country. There's 16,000 Catholics in a country of 21 million. We distribute mosquito nets to the whole population in the country, cover them all to try to prevent malaria, and we do some of these farming and livestock things to help the people there. When I then went over to Burkina Faso, had a meeting with the whole Episcopal Conference. So all of the bishops came together and were supportive of the work we do. And similarly, when I went to Senegal, met with the whole conference. So the resources that we get are planned in with the local church there and responding to the local needs, be it food security, be it emergency response, migration, or any of the issues that they face.
And of course, we encourage everyone to check out crs.org, and you can find out information as well, not only to donate, but find out all the places that you're doing great work in.